So I'm involved in mental health research, and mental health is a very important area for the Illawarra community, but also more broadly for New South Wales and Australia. We're looking at particular areas of mental health that nobody else is really paying attention to, things like chronic trauma and long-term personality disorder features and so forth, the things that we're really focusing on here at IHMRI.
Over 300,000 people already suffer from dementia in Australia, and that number is likely to rise to 1 million by 2050. Alzheimer's disease is the main cause of dementia, and our work is really aimed at trying to understand the fundamental cause of the disease.
I basically do cancer research. I do from basic research through to translational work, so taking new drugs through to clinical trials.
We develop special kind of medical devices for quality assurance in radiation therapy, which we can see that only one way of implementation is put through IHMRI to get real clinical implementation where many hospitals can be connected to IHMRI and will be using our technology, which is innovative, outstanding, and only one in the world such kind of development.
There are now over 6.5 billion mobile phone subscriptions worldwide, which means nearly one for every person on this planet. And as such, we have a new technology and we really need to know whether it's safe.
So we have been involved with the development of new materials that enable highly effective communication with nerve and muscle, with a view to developing implants for regenerative purposes. We're looking at using 3D printing in order to create materials that will facilitate in bone regeneration.
We've just completed a trial examining the effects of a high vegetable consumption on weight loss. All the people in our trial increased their amount of vegetables and lost a considerable amount of weight.
From the research that we've been doing, that long-term exposure to cannabis results in a schizophrenia-like conditions in the brain, so it sort of primes the brain towards developing a psychosis. And we are now looking at what mechanisms, when cannabis comes in, how might it trigger a psychosis. We do hope to inform the knowledge base, but we also hope that we'll be able to provide some messages that can be fed back to the community in terms of risks associated with cannabis, understanding vulnerability factors, who might be at risk, and how much cannabis might they need to use before they might develop psychosis. So we think there will be feedback to the community about those kinds of factors.
Our IHMRI small grant enabled us to work with the team of clinical dietitians to identify a really good, valid prevalence of malnutrition in older people admitted to hospitals in the region. We've been able to start a 3-phase project looking at barriers to screening of malnutrition in general practice. And we've now moved to testing and developing a model that hopefully can be incorporated in general practice across the region.
My laboratory is very interested in understanding the basic underpinnings of motor neuron disease, and we do that in 2 ways. We do that firstly by looking at the genetics and understanding how those mutated genes cause MND, and the other way is we're very interested in understanding the progression of disease, because we think that if we can understand the progression, then we can halt that progression in some way.
Well, our area of research in our group is largely focused on physical activity and sedentary behaviour, looking at toddlers, preschoolers, children and adolescents. We use a behavioural epidemiology framework for our programs. We seek to better understand how prevalent these behaviours are, how we can best measure them, what factors influence them, how we can promote them, and how we can translate all that evidence into policy and practice.
Prior to coming to IHMRI, I've been at a number of universities, international and national, very high-ranking institutes, and some that do extremely well in terms of research funding. But I can tell you that I find research here as good as anywhere I've been, anywhere I've seen. We're still a young institute, but we've had some great successes, and we're now poised to move on as a more mature institute. It's important that we know where we're going and that those who support us know where we're going and what we're good at. So we've spent some time in the last few months putting together our new strategic plan. Our research strategy is based around our strengths in diagnostics and therapeutics, mental health and the ageing brain, and chronic conditions and lifestyle. I'm really excited about where we're going to go with this new strategic plan, bringing those groups together and really extending the research, extending our researchers and bringing in our clinical colleagues.